Concerning opportunities and barriers in the energy sector, the COVID-19 pandemic and other recent threats have altered many other facets of the global economy in addition to endangering human health. In spite of stringent lockdowns in 2020, the majority of renewable energy installations, such as onshore wind farms and PV power plants, were constructed. These two renewable energy sources are evolving quickly. It is important to emphasize that the public's commitment to battling climate change was unaffected by the pandemic. Government and the general public must work together to change how renewable energy is used. Our evaluation's goal is to ascertain how much support there is for renewable energy sources globally and how the pandemic has changed that support. The ability of individuals to travel and distribute goods internationally is crucial to the global economy and globalization. Regrettably, this also promotes the spread of bacteria and viruses. The air was one of the main channels for COVID-19 transmission. Transmission through congested areas, particularly in cities, was another factor. We found discussions on issues like the COVID-19 pandemic, climate change, and renewable energy sources by looking through a variety of periodicals. Conducted interesting research on the changes in household consumption of electricity during the pandemic. In particular, the issue of energy security was one that the industry looked into in relation to the implications of the rising demand for energy at home during lockdowns. Job loss and challenges with working and learning remotely, which persisted much longer than lockdowns themselves, suggested that the COVID-19 pandemic was relevant to energy poverty because it grew worse during the pandemic. The areas with inadequate energy infrastructure and slow internet access became more obvious under these novel circumstances, adding to the worry that some demographic groups and regions might be shut out of modern society. There have been effects from variations in household electricity use during the pandemic. Investigations were done into lost jobs, problems with learning and working remotely, which persisted much longer than lockdowns themselves, and the increased need for energy at home during lockdowns. This growth had an impact on energy security. Suggested that the COVID-19 epidemic was significant given the then emerging problem of energy poverty. These unusual events increased awareness of communities with inadequate internet and energy infrastructure, sparking worries that some racial and geographic groups are becoming cut off from modern civilization. The pandemic response has some acknowledged benefits, and COVID-19 is seen as possibly promoting the development of renewable energy given that these sources are more resilient to shocks from the outside world than fossil fuels. When industrial power demand is drastically declining because of low operating costs, regulatory preferences, and decentralized manufacturing, renewable energy sources are more adaptable. Renewable energy sources are the future, because they are more dependable and resistant to pandemics than fossil fuels. Their dependability is further increased by the ability to remotely or even autonomously operate renewable energy installations. In light of the crisis and additional in-depth analysis, there is skepticism regarding whether government representatives will sincerely promote renewable energy sources in the wake of the pandemic, especially in Europe. The fossil fuel industry may ultimately become more robust than it was prior to the epidemic, because of the global energy market's sensitivity to trade shocks and the openness of its supply networks to those shocks. The fact that coal-based energy is less expensive than that derived from renewable resources is another problem. Initiatives that emphasized a broader understanding of climate change were developed during the epidemic. They demanded an all-inclusive, multidisciplinary approach to mitigation that took into account the economy, policy, food supply, public health, and of course, energy and technology. Our analyses show that such a strategy ought to be comprehensive, long-lasting, and based on the following pillars: decarbonization, encouragement of regional food systems and climate-smart agriculture, creation of renewable energy sources, and inclusion of climate issues in environmental regulations. The establishment of a suitable green financing framework is also necessary, in addition to the new technological developments required to accomplish these goals. Another important topic is global carbon dioxide reduction. This refers to strategies. The substitution of renewable energy sources, and less climatically damaging energy sources like natural gas for coal, is a crucial element of new strategies. Pandemics, energy, and climate continuity. The fact that China was the first country to experience the epidemic, has the second largest economy, and uses the most energy in the world must be emphasized. However, all energy sources are currently receiving subsidies despite China's commitment to becoming carbon neutral by 2060. It would encourage economic expansion linked to ecological restoration's advantages and the satisfaction of demand for the growing development of renewable energy sources. The argument is that as China recovers from the epidemic, the fight against global warming will gain. Many people view China's potential carbon neutrality as a big plus in the wake of the pandemic. Some believe that China's potential carbon neutrality, which has the potential to reduce global warming by up to 0.3 degrees Celsius on its own, could be a game changer in the fight against climate change. Consumer Trading Organization Limited will host more concepts in the future.